We just put up a website called understandmyself.com, and it's a personality assessment for individuals. It's based on the Big Five personality model, which measures extroversion, which is a positive emotion dimension, and is associated with gregariousness and enthusiasm and assertiveness and sociability and that sort of thing. And a trait called neuroticism, which is basically negative emotionality, which is associated with a proclivity towards anxiety and emotional pain. Agreeableness, which is compassion and politeness. And so agreeable people are, I would say, broadly speaking, rather maternal in their orientation. They tend to care more for others than for themselves. They're more cooperative than competitive, whereas so-called disagreeable people are more competitive and more able to stand up for themselves as well. Conscientiousness is another one of the dimensions. That's orderliness and industriousness. And the last dimension is openness to experience, which is a combination of interest in ideas, which is often known as intellect, and interest in aesthetics, and which is associated, let's say, with creativity. And that's the dimension that's also most highly correlated with IQ. We developed the Big Five aspect scale in an attempt to take the Big Five, so that's extroversion, neuroticism, agreeableness, conscientiousness, and openness to experience, which are the canonical dimensions of personality. We developed the Big Five aspect scale in order to break down those Big Five traits, each of them into their two most statistically robust subcomponents, and we call those aspects. And you answer 100 questions in order to complete the personality survey. The questions themselves are actually public access, or you could call them open source. What we're hoping is that people can use this personality test site to develop a much deeper understanding of themselves so that they know what they're like, especially compared to others. See, the thing about personality is the differences between people actually run quite deep. There's a lot of individual variability. So there are people who are extremely extroverted and they want to spend every moment of their time socializing with other people. And there are people who are very introverted and they want to work alone, and they find interactions with large groups of people, or even small groups sometimes, quite tiring, and they have to spend a lot of time recovering. They tend to be much more quiet. They're not necessarily shy, because that shyness is more consequence of variation on the second dimension, neuroticism. And so people who are high in neuroticism feel much more anxiety and emotional pain per unit of uncertainty and stress than people who are very low in neuroticism, who are often known as emotionally stable and who tend to be quite imperturbable. Agreeable people, as I mentioned before, are warm and compassionate and very much care for other people, but are also likely to be taken advantage of and to feel a certain amount of resentment, whereas disagreeable people are tough and straightforward and competitive and out for victory, but can also be somewhat self-centered and harsh. And then conscientious people are hardworking and dutiful. Conscientiousness is a really good predictor of long-term life success, especially in academic attainment, where it's second only to IQ, and also in managerial and administrative jobs that require attention to detail and a fair bit of responsibility, let's say, and routine work. Openness to experience, that's the creativity dimension, and some people are extremely high in openness to experience, and they want to do nothing but discuss ideas and spend their time in creative and artistic pursuits, and other people are more conservative because low openness is associated with conservatism, and they're not really interested in novel ideas, and they don't think abstractly that often, and they're not out for new experiences or flights of fantasy or imaginative exercises or any of that thing. They're a lot more concrete and practical. Now, the reports that we've prepared not only provide you with information about all of the aforementioned Big Five traits, they also break each one down into its dual aspects. So there's actually 15 different sources of information that are contained in the reports. And so for extroversion, you get a description of the degree to which you're assertive, which means forthcoming, let's say, in public and willing to put your opinions forward. And enthusiasm, which is a more pure marker of positive emotion and the capacity to look forward to and enjoy events and situations spontaneously. And with neuroticism, you learn about the trait aspects, withdrawal and volatility. And withdrawal is the tendency to be stymied or stopped, let's say, by fear, to be frozen in some sense like a prey animal. And volatility is an aspect that's associated with irritability and the tendency to be easily rubbed the wrong way, let's say, and to react emotionally to that. And then for agreeableness, there's two aspects, and one is compassion, which means pretty much what it says. It's the ability to embody the feelings of others and to react in a caring manner to that. And politeness, which seems to be something like respect for authority and social conventions. And so one of the things you see, for example, is that liberals are higher in compassion and conservatives are higher in politeness, even though they're both aspects of trait agreeableness. Conscientiousness breaks down into two aspects as well, which are quite interesting. One of them is industriousness, which is associated with diligent hard work and the ability to stay task-focused without distraction and to work hard. And orderliness, which seems to be associated with disgust sensitivity and which is a pretty good predictor of conservative belief, as it turns out that some elements of conservative belief are associated with higher than normal levels of, or higher than average, let's say, levels of disgust sensitivity. And the final trait, division into aspects, is that of openness to experience, and it can be divided into openness proper, which is essentially a dimension of creativity and aesthetic sensitivity, so preference for engagement in activities that are associated, say, with fiction or drama or art, and intellect, which is an index of interest in ideas and abstraction and philosophical concepts and that sort of thing. So the report produces a very high resolution representation of personality, and there are very interesting differences at the aspect level that are worth concentrating on. We try to develop a personality test that isn't designed to make you feel good about yourself, although it might, it depends on your personality, but to give you the most accurate and straightforward description of who you are that's possible, so that you can use the genuine information that's provided in order to maybe organize your life. Also understand the difference between yourself and other people, because we often think that the reason that we don't share the same viewpoint is because we have differences of opinion, but it actually goes a lot deeper than that, because your very perceptions are dependent on the variability in your personality. And so it isn't only that people differ in their opinions, they differ very much in how they see the world, how they actually perceive the world, because your personality constitutes a kind of template or filter through which you organize your perceptions. And so it's very important to understand that there is substantial personality variability in the world, and that you're often talking with people who see things differently than you.